Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report is your preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda and an update from your Oshkosh City Manager. Your hosts, Emily Mikowski of Oshkosh Community Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on your City Manager's Report. I'm your host, Emily Mikowski, as always joined by our City Manager, Mark Roloff. And this is a program that you kind of get a little preview of the City Council agenda for Tuesday, May 13th, 2014. We'll also go over a few hot topics around Oshkosh, things to be looking out for this week. So without further ado, I'll introduce our City Manager, Mark Roloff. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, Emily.
So kicking it off with some inflow and infiltration issues. Now, we've had a lot of April showers this past month, and we're definitely starting to feel it a little bit. So what kind of problems have we seen so far coming up?
Well, it's a continuation of a lot of the issues that we're still facing. We're pleased with a lot of progress we're making on addressing what's known as inflow and infiltration, or I&I, but what happens is clear water is entering our sanitary sewer system. Technically, there shouldn't be any connections there, but obviously the statistics show that we are getting it. Our Steve Brand, our utilities manager, pointed out to me that we had some spikes at the plant where we had 75 million gallons going through the sewer treatment plant on April 13th and 14th, and our normal flow for that time of year is about 12 to 13 million gallons. So you're looking at an extra 60 million gallons of water going through the plant that really doesn't need to be treated because it's clear water. So it's entering from a lot of different areas. We know where they could potentially be coming from, but we're going through the process of identifying where these are and addressing them as we go. But it's a challenge, to say the least.
And so what kind of things do residents notice when they do have problems in their own house?
Well, the complaints that we've been getting have been that there's sewage backup in their basements, and that's because there's so much water in the lines. Now, what the residents can do, we've identified 11 different sources of stormwater entering the sanitary system, and about 4 of those 11 are on private property and that the residents can control themselves. The number one thing you can do is make sure that your sump pump, if you have one, is not connected to your sanitary sewer, because all you're doing is pumping water right into the sewer. Now, some of the older homes in town, this is going to take a longer time, but homes that don't have sump pumps, before sump pumps were really in vogue, any home built after 1920, maybe up to the 1970s, would have this type of foundation drain that drains their water directly into their sanitary sewer. Eventually, as you take a look at your house, you should look for those things and correct them. Then there's some of the more maintenance types of issues. If your sewer line goes out to the street, if there's a little crack in it, a tree could get attracted to it and break the pipe up even more. And as the pipe gets broken, you may notice it with a backup and you may clean it out, but then water is still entering into your pipes and going out in the street. And that's probably the worst case of all of those. But there's a variety of others. Meanwhile, we have our own problems that we have to address. We need to address old sanitary sewer, or old storm sewers that are connected to the sanitary system, broken pipes that are attracting groundwater, and also the manholes. You hear a lot about what we're doing with manholes. That's probably the biggest thing we're doing. The old manholes with pick holes and right in them, on the edge of them, the water goes right in there. We've got to stop those things. So we're replacing those and a lot of manhole castings. So we know there's a lot to be done. It's going to take a long time, but we know what the sources are. So it's a matter of just addressing them in a very methodical basis.
Yes, and it really is an ongoing project, like you said. It's a constant thing to keep up with, and it's interesting to know that, well, not interesting, but it's good to know that it's on both sides of the table here, that residents are able to do things to try and look out for different problems and maybe even prevent them.
Yeah, and so anything you can do on your side, please try to do it, please identify it, and then we'll take a look on our side and see what we need to do. But we've got a lot of work to do, but we're going through it step by step.
Another kind of big update here is the citizen survey. The results recently came out, 328 responses. What can you tell us that you noticed some hot topics that were top of mind for you in this survey this year?
Well, 320 doesn't sound like a lot of responses, but from a statistical standpoint, it means that we've got almost a 95% validity, a little over 5% margin of error. But I still think that that's pretty good for the type of survey that we have. We ask about what residents think about the quality of the services, the importance of the services, and the traditional services that have always been out there as terms of importance are there: police, fire, public works. Our library is always listed as very high in importance. Quality of service, police, fire, library, very highly regarded. Street maintenance, storm drains are high in importance, but they're lesser in quality, and we know that, and we just had a discussion about that. Those are areas that I think the public is recognizing. We're making some improvements in those areas. For example, there's lower negative numbers on streets and stormwater. Part of stormwater, I think, is because we haven't had some really bad storms in recent years, although the ones we just had a couple weeks ago were done after the survey. I would suspect we might get a little bit worse if it had been done about the same time. But streets, there's fewer negative numbers, and I think that reflects the community's understanding that we are addressing these issues. We don't have them all done, but we're working on them, and that's what's important, that we're making progress. And so it's nice to know that the residents are recognizing that.
And one thing that was kind of a drastic increase since 2009 was the quality of trails. You were telling me, I'm new to Oshkosh, so I was kind of curious as to know where the increase came from. And the amount that we've gone forward with our trails has been huge over the past 5 years.
Yeah, for the most part, we really didn't have a trail system 5 years ago. We had some very minor ones. Now we have a pedestrian and bike plan, and the Riverwalk has been going on, and so there's fewer negatives on streets and trails. In fact, it went from 19% negative to 3% negative. So I think people recognize the value of trails and those types of the recreational value, the transportation value, and so we're really excited that the public is acknowledging that and supporting those initiatives. So it's great feedback to get.
Yes, and I know one question you wanted to cover was the underground utilities. What can you tell us about that? That was kind of a bonus question, wasn't it?
We always had a bonus question every year, something new and current, and there's been a lot of talk about undergrounding utilities, and and I'm going to be sharing it with council. We had a variety of questions, but overall, my impression is that the public is not overly excited about the need to underground utilities. I think some people like it, but even if the residents were asked, even if it cost you nothing, would you be interested? And I think the public recognizes that when we say nothing, we mean nothing billed to you directly, but it would be picked up through the tax bill. Even when they said it was zero cost directly to you, 45% of the people said no. When you add in even something as small as $25 or $50 a year, it went up to 75%. So when 3/4 of the people are against it and it would only cost them direct bill $50 or less, I think it's pretty much against it. Now we're going to keep working on some of them, but we're not going to be doing it for cost. We're really going to be moving the cross wires across streets, and we're going to be working on that on 9th Avenue in the coming years. But I think what it said is a full-blown citywide undergrounding project is probably not something that the public feels is important at this time, because they feel there are other important things like street maintenance and stormwater and things like that. The other thing I would point out is that the residents, a lot of the comments were concerned about the increases in taxes and the increases in fees. We had just sent out the bill for the new recycling fee, and that we got a lot of negative feedback for that. You can't deny those types of things. So it's something we have to keep an eye on, let the council be aware of it. I know they've heard from the public on this individually. Statistically, they're getting it too, so it's being validated. It's not just a political issue, it is a customer service issue. So something we're going to have to address in the future and keep an eye on that as we look to provide services. We got to balance it against the ability of the community to pay.
Right, and really there is a lot of interesting and useful data in this survey. put on by UW Oshkosh. Do you find that over the years that you've found this survey to be a pretty useful tool for the city?
As the years go on, it's even better because you're be able to track data. We're able to track the fact that there's an opinion change on the quality of streets, an opinion change on trails. So we gauge the public as time goes on, and we can see, are we making progress? Is the public satisfied with what we're doing? We're excited that the opinion on quality of service has gone up. Opinion on Oshkosh as a place to live has gone up. A place to raise a family, feeling of safety. All those indicators say that we're improving. So we're very proud of that. We can't take that for granted. We have to continue to improve in other areas, but really encourage that we're making this progress.
Yes, and the more the more years we do it, the more concise, and you can really see the fluctuation in there of what's going on.
Yeah.
And we did have that up on the screen before. It is available on the website, the city website, right in the hot topics section. So if you are interested in looking at more of the details of the results, you can go to www.ci.oshkosh.wi.us to see that. So moving on to our next topic here, a little update on the automated recycling and refuse. Really a big safety increase that we're looking at over the past 4 years, I think it was.
I was looking at some workers' compensation claim statistics, and it just jumped out at me that we had a 90% reduction in the number of workers' compensation claims. So that's phenomenal. But when you think about it, it makes perfect sense because our workers used to be riding on the back of a truck, just hanging on, jumping off, and picking up heavy garbage cans, not knowing necessarily what's in there, throwing their backs out, twisting their ankles when they're getting on and off a truck to help their fellow worker. Now we have one person that operates a joystick and just lifts it in and out. Very rarely do they have to get out of their vehicle, and that's usually where we're seeing the accidents. But a 90% reduction there, and we actually estimated we would have a 70% reduction. So we've done even better than that. So we're real excited that this is very cost effective and things like that. And plus it's safer for the employees, which is another positive outcome. So we're real happy that the staff has taken to it so well, and it's just a very good process all together.
And it just really, that number amazes me, the 90% reduction in workers' comp, and you just said it all right there. The fact that they're not even having to get out of their vehicle really has a lot to do with it. So, and I mean, just such a cool machine to look at and watch too. So another update we've got here has to do with Go EDC. The business community has really been pushing this issue a lot. What can you tell us about what's going on right now?
Sure. Well, I think when we had done some reorganization in community development to add an economic development division, there was a genuine concern that perhaps we were moving away from public-private partnership, and that wasn't the case. And so the business members of the initial group talking about Go EDC said, we really need to step this up. And so we need to formalize this organization and get incorporated and get bylaws and really have accountabilities so that we can do something. So we finally decided to incorporate. We have a governing board, an interim governing board, and there's the immediate executive committee consists of 7 members, and I'm the only public person on it. The rest are business people within the community. So I think it reflects that the business community truly wants to be engaged in this, and they know that without their support that this will just not work.
Right. Why exactly is the private sector so important to the Go EDC? I mean, obviously they're directly involved in economic development.
Well, it's really getting the business community involved because they know what businesses need to improve the business climate, improve their ability to invest and create jobs. They're the ones creating the jobs, and so we really need to rely on them to give us that insight and input to be able to deliver the right services. They also, eventually, we're going to need the private sector to help invest in this, and the city puts a lot of resources. We probably have over $300,000 invested in economic development on an annual basis, and that doesn't include any of the TIFs. That's just staffing and things like that. So eventually we're going to need resources from the private sector, And the private sector wants to know that their investment's going to be made wisely. And if other businesses are doing it, they're going to feel more comfortable doing it themselves. So we need the leaders of the business community to step up, and they really have. And I'm very pleased with the progress that they're making, and we're moving along, and I'm very pleased.
Yes, and I know you said 2 of the main goals was business retention and marketing, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes from here with the interim board. Yeah,
and those 2, business retention and marketing, we really need the expertise of our local businesses to know how to get into what the needs are of our community. So we're very happy, and those are the 2 initiatives you're going to see out of the starting gate.
Great. Moving on to the next one here, tech college funding. It's supposedly going to be taken over by the state pretty soon here, and we wanted to talk a little bit about that, exactly what it means, what's going to be the outcome, and who's going to be affected by this.
Well, Dr. Susan May, the president of Fox Valley Technical College, made a presentation recently, and it's good in that the state is trying to reduce the reliance of government on the property tax, because our property taxes are some of the highest in the country because we rely on them so heavily. So the state would like to take the tech colleges funding less from property taxes and more on state funding, which is a good goal to have. But they are also proposing to take away some of the controls, and local control is really crucial to the success of our technical colleges, because the technical colleges, and I talked about this with the economic development, the tech colleges are great at getting to the needs of a business and responding to those business needs very quickly, very responsive, very nimble. If you get it into the state bureaucracy, it's going to slow it down. You're not going to see the results nearly close to what we have currently with the technical college system. And Dr. May certainly sold me on that. And so making council aware of it, make the community aware of it, that state takeover of the technical college system is really not in our best interest for economic development and job growth in our area.
And this is kind of a wait and see type of thing. It's not for sure yet, kind of waiting for more info on that, right?
Yeah, the funding side, they want to turn over to the state, which is a good idea to have that more broad, but the control issue, I think we really need to take a hard look on that and let our public state legislators know that this is not something that is in our best interests.
Great. So we're getting to the midpoint of our show here. So now it's that time where viewers have the chance to ask their city manager anything they want about things going on right here in Oshkosh. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the question is this week on Question Mark. All right, Mark, the question this week is, why does the city sweep the streets so much?
I'm surprised that we got it this early in the year, because we've only started our street sweeping program in the last few weeks.
So people are noticing them out there.
People are noticing them already. But it all has to do with stormwater quality requirements that come from the state. And then from the state, from the federal government. We're under requirements as what's known as a Phase 2 community to reduce the amount of what's called total suspended solids, TSS, that are in our stormwater. And the most effective way that we get credit for is by sweeping the streets. So it's really a mandate that we have. We do sweep up a lot. We dump a lot out of those sweepers, even though it may not look like that. There's a lot of small particles in the streets, and when we pick those up, we get credit for doing that. And we're under requirements at the federal level to reduce total suspended solids. So this is how we do it. We do it a number of times throughout the year, and people notice that, and people say, is it really necessary? From a legal standpoint, yeah, it's very necessary. Do you necessarily need it after a rainstorm? Maybe not as much. After this rains that we've had the past month, probably not much to sweep up. But we do sweep it up, we do get credit for it, and it helps us meet our state and federal requirements.
Great. So keep an eye out for those trucks. Give them some room when you're driving, and we'll just go from there this spring, I guess.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to send a question to Mark, simply email it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he will answer it on the next episode of City Managers Report. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll dive into the City Council meeting agenda for this Tuesday, May 13th. We'll be right back.
Thinking about dealing drugs in our county? Think again.
Take it slow, take it slow, take it slow. When we see a roundabout, take it slow. Then we pick the correct lane and take it slow. When we see a car approach, we yield to the left. When we're in that roundabout, we don't pass anybody yet. Take it slow, take it slow, take it slow.
Visit WisconsinRoundabouts.com for more info from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to your City Managers Report. Again, I'm your host, Emily Mikowski, as always joined by your City Manager, Mark Roloff. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the council meeting agenda for Tuesday, May 13th, 2014, kicking it off actually at 5 with a workshop tour for the new field operations facility. So Mark, what can you tell us about that?
Well, we're about halfway through the project. So the first phase is pretty much done, and this is where the real tricky part comes in. So we want to give council a tour to see the progress that we've made so far. The offices, the employee locker rooms, those are all done. And the parts room, the shop, the parts shop is done. But a lot of the garage storage, that's what's really not done. Mm-hmm. But the real issue is the first phase is going to open soon. We got to move everything out of the old building into the new building, and then we got to start tearing down the old building so we can put the rest of the storage facility in. But at the same time, we still need to provide a lot of services to the residents, so that's going to be the real challenge. It's going to be working and moving at the same time. So we want to give council a good feel for what it looks like, see what their investment is. Remember, the building over 65 years old. Somebody said in the citizen survey they thought, well, that was only 20 years old, why are you replacing it? It's extremely old. So we're happy to get the council a look-see at it and see that their investment is really paying off.
And it's looking great. I mean, as you're driving down Witzel, you definitely notice it there. Looks wonderful from the outside with all that stonework. So within the next couple of weeks, they'll be moving in and then moving on to phase 2.
Yep.
All right, so up next here, at the very beginning of the council meeting, introducing some new staff members for the Economic Development Division. What can you tell us about them? I know we talked about them a little bit last CMR.
Sure. Well, they're on board now. Brenda Hicks Sorensen is our interim economic development manager. She comes to us from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, mm-hmm. and we're very happy to have her on board. Nancy Jo Dietzen is our economic development analyst. She was previously with Chamco, so we're utilizing a lot of our previous partners, WEDC, Chamco, to help us move our staff forward. So real excited, and we're going to be working with GoEDC very closely to help them along in their initial phases. So we're delivering services that are going to help bring jobs to the community. So we're excited.
Looking forward to having that great experience in there and seeing what we can get with that. Moving on here, actually, the next few items having a lot of vehicles, award bids, a few of them CNG. So if you want to maybe just tell us a little bit about the city's ideas and theories on the CNG, compressed natural gas.
Well, we believe that CNG, compressed natural gas, is a viable alternative for fuel. And so what I've asked departments to do is evaluate when they're purchasing a vehicle if CNG is a viable option. And specifically, will there be a good payback if we invest in something like that? Will it, by buying a CNG vehicle, we want to make sure it's not going to cause any disruptions in service. If it causes an inconvenience, then we want to take a look at that. So we've got probably 5 vehicles on the agenda for replacement. 2 of them are CNG. So not every one of them will be replaced with CNG, but we do recognize that as time goes on, it makes sense to consider these as a viable option.
Yes, and actually in the field operations facility, there will be a CNG fueling station there as well. Is that correct?
We're going to have the capability of it.
Okay.
We've got the capability, but we're also going to have a CNG bay because you have to have special venting in the garage to make sure that everything's safe. So we've got one bay specifically dedicated to CNG vehicles. It can be used for other vehicles, but it'll be able to be used for CNG whenever they need maintenance.
Excellent. So those 2 vehicles are going to be going to parks and water distribution, so we can look forward to having those on the streets pretty soon here.
Yep.
Next item here, approval of a special event. We wanted to get this in here for the Oshkosh Patriotic Council to use city streets for the Memorial Day procession and services. And we wanted to get this in here. I'm going to be co-hosting with Doc Sunlightner this year. So we're looking forward to that, Monday, May 26th at 9 a.m.
It's a wonderful event to honor our fallen heroes, and it's a very solemn event. But we have a lot of bands that are commemorating our veterans' service to our country, and a very nice ceremony at Riverside Cemetery. So 9 o'clock, if you can get out on Memorial Day, if you're not away for the weekend, take a look at it. You'll see it starts at the courthouse up to Riverside Cemetery and really goes along Algoma Boulevard through the university. It's a great place to take your kids and let them learn a little something about our history.
And you can get in touch with the Oshkosh Patriotic Council. There are a lot of different services going on that day. Even at South Park, before the Memorial Day procession, there are some services going on. So just go ahead and get in touch with the Oshkosh Patriotic Council for that. Up next here, Resolution 14-233 is Approve the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative Program. This is big. It's got 5 main parts. If we want to pull up the graphic, and we can kind of go through those a little bit here.
Sure. Well, this is really in response to the design standards that were adopted by council. We need to identify ways to provide incentives for people to be able to comply. And then there's also improving the neighborhood. So Healthy Neighborhood Initiative, the programs, those 5 there, resident engagement, what a lot of that is involved with is giving incentives for people to do things in their neighborhood, but also to develop neighborhood plans. So we've got neighborhood associations getting established, but we also want them to develop plans, so anything we do is in keeping with those plans. We also have education and training that's involved in that. Education training is just to get the residents to be more active members. Pride of place has to do with being proud of your specific neighborhood. And you saw the one graphic with the different neighborhoods that are there. We want people to be able to identify with their neighborhoods and then do improvements to improve the exterior of their properties. Part of that goes back to the design standards, but even if they want to do something to improve it because they believe it's helpful for them, so you'll see those. And these are the neighborhoods that have already created associations. Middle Village is the only one that has developed a plan yet. They have a very elaborate plan. You don't have to go as elaborate as they did, but it shows that there's additional incentives built into the program. The other thing I would point out is that we have safety, working with our police department, fire department, and just general building code safety. And then the biggest part of the program is housing revitalization, putting funds in there to improve housing. But one thing you didn't see on that map was a neighborhood association on the south side. Our goal is to try to get a south side neighborhood organized and show some of the value that we can bring to neighborhoods throughout the community.
It's a great plan, going to be adopted on Tuesday, and it will be available on the city website as well later next week. So we're just about out of time, Mark, so thanks again for joining us as always. Again, the City Council meeting is this Tuesday, May 13th, 2014. You can watch it live on City Cable 10 and on our website at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org. Make sure to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for all of your community and government programming and updates, or you can check out our YouTube channel for government meeting replays and past episodes of your favorite programs. Don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, you can send it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he'll answer it on the next episode of CMR. So as always, thanks so much for joining us on City Manager's Report, and we'll see you next time.